Part 3. He did wait for me. But when the moonlight hit the sand, there was nothing. Only silence. By the 10th day, another horror unfolded. A young woman carrying a baby collapsed. The baby cried weakly, its lips dry. The woman begged Mahmoud for water, but he slapped her and walked away. The baby's cries grew faint until they stopped completely. The woman wailed, tearing at her clothes, clutching the lifeless child. Emma's heart ripped apart watching her. But worse was what came next. The smugglers forced her to leave the baby in the sand. She screamed until her voice broke, but they dragged her away. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. He swore he heard the baby's cries carried by the wind, echoing in the dunes. The sound followed him into his dreams. By now, only 14 people were alive. From 42 dreamers, only 14 broken bodies remained. Their eyes were empty, their souls crushed. Emma sat apart, whispering to himself. I must reach Italy. I must reach. If not, Daniel died for nothing. But deep inside, another voice answered, cold, mocking. You will not reach. The desert will keep you. Just like it kept Daniel. Emma clutched his head, rocking back and forth, fighting to silence the whispers. He was still alive, but his mind was slipping into the desert hands. Emma wandered aimlessly through the dust and ruins, every step heavier than the last. He had no idea where he was going, all he knew was that he had escaped death, only to walk straight into another. By evening, a pickup truck screeched to a halt beside him. Armed men jumped down, their rifles pointed. Emma raised his trembling hands, too weak to run. One of them laughed and shoved him into the back of the truck. When the blindfold was finally pulled off, Emma found himself in a compound surrounded by barbed wires and high walls. The air was thick with sweat, blood, and human suffering. Dozens of migrants sat on the bare floor, their bodies stained, their faces hollow. Some were chained, some bleeding, some coughing so hard it sounded like their lungs were tearing apart. The guards patrolled with whips and guns, barking orders in Arabic. This was not a shelter. This was a prison. Welcome to Libya, one guard sneered in broken English. You work, or you die. Emma's first night in the camp was unbearable. The floor was cold concrete. Rats moved freely between bodies. A young woman cried until her voice cracked. Somewhere in the dark, a man whispered prayers in Hausa, while another begged in Igbo for God's mercy. By morning, Emma understood the horror. Migrants were forced to call their families back home. If their relatives didn't send money for ransom, the guards beat them, or worse, sold them into slavery. Emma's turn came. A guard thrust a broken phone into his hands and ordered him to call. His voice shook as he spoke to his mother in Nigeria. Mama, it's me. Please, they will kill me if you don't send something. Anything. On the other end, his mother wept. She had nothing. Not a kobo. She was a petty trader barely surviving. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Emma, my son, forgive me. The guard snatched the phone, furious. The whip came down across Emma's back, tearing skin. Pain shot through his body like fire. He fell, but they beat him again until he couldn't even cry. Days bled into nights. Emma watched people die beside him, starved, beaten, forgotten. The camp smelled of rot and despair. Yet, inside him, a small flame refused to die. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Daniel's face, his mother's tears, and the promise of freedom beyond the sea. One night, while lying half-conscious on the cold floor, Emma whispered to himself. I must survive this, even if it kills me. But the desert was only half of the nightmare. What awaited Emma in Libya's sea city would be the most terrifying chapter of all. Emma had stopped counting the days in the Libyan prison. Hunger gnawed at him, scars burned across his back, and nightmares haunted his every breath. But one night, a chance came. A group of armed smugglers stormed the camp, dragging out a handful of migrants, including Emma. At first, he thought it was an execution. But instead, they shoved them into a truck. "You're going to the water," one guard growled. "The water. The Mediterranean. The final crossing." After weeks of torture, the sea looked like freedom. But as Emma stood at the shore and saw the boat, his heart sank. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even strong enough to face a storm. It was a rubber dinghy, already sagging, meant for maybe 15 people, yet more than 40 were forced inside. Emma squeezed in with the others, knees pressed to his chest, salt air biting his wounds. The engine roared, and darkness swallowed them as they drifted into the open sea. For the first few hours, hope burned. Emma could almost taste Italy on the horizon. He thought of his mother's face, of Daniel's laughter, of home. Then the storm came. Waves rose like black mountains, slamming against the dinghy. Water gushed in. People screamed, clung to each other, prayed in different tongues. Some jumped, trying to swim. The sea swallowed them instantly. Emma held on, nails digging into the rubber, whispering, "God, don't let me die here. Not here." The dinghy tore. Bodies slipped into the freezing water. Within minutes, it was chaos, the storm's roar mixed with human cries, then silence as one by one, voices were cut short. Emma saw a boy, no older than 15, swept away. He reached out, but the sea dragged the boy under. He saw a mother holding her baby, both disappeared in a single wave. Out of 42 who had left the desert, only 8 clung to the wreckage as dawn broke. Salt burned Emma's eyes. His lips were blue. He no longer had the strength to cry. Then, in the distance, a light. A rescue ship. Hands pulled him from the freezing sea. His body collapsed on the deck, trembling, barely alive. For the first time in months, Emma lay on solid ground, Italy. But there was no joy. Only silence. The faces of the 34 who had died haunted him. Daniel's ghost, the screams of the desert, the whip of Libya, the storm's roar, they lived inside him forever. As he was wrapped in a blanket, Emma whispered, voice broken. "We left 42, only 8 arrived. The desert and the sea are graveyards. But somehow, I am alive." And with tears mixing with seawater on his cheeks, Emma understood, survival was not victory. It was a burden. Yeah.